What happens when you cut the brain in half? Not metaphorically, literally. What happens when the two hemispheres of the human brain can no longer talk to each other? In the mid-20th century, scientists and surgeons stumbled upon an unsettling answer. The result of that question suggested something profound, that what we call the self might not be a single entity, that your brain, your mind, might be home to more than one version of you. The human brain is divided into two hemispheres, the left and the right. These two halves are connected by a dense bundle of approximately 200 million nerve fibers called the corpus callosum. This structure allows the two hemispheres to communicate, rapidly sharing sensory data, emotional signals, and decisions in real time. But in the 1940s and 50s, a radical treatment for severe epilepsy involved cutting the corpus callosum entirely. This surgery, known as a corpus callosotomy, effectively isolated the two hemispheres in an attempt to prevent seizures from spreading from one side of the brain to the other. It worked. The seizures often stopped. But then the science began. Neuroscientists Roger Sperry and Michael Gazzaniga conducted experiments on these so-called split-brain patients, and what they discovered was as fascinating as it was unsettling. Because the left and right hemispheres have specialized functions, severing the connection between them allowed scientists to see how each half operated on its own. The left hemisphere, typically responsible for language, logic, and sequential reasoning, controls the right side of the body. The right hemisphere, more involved with spatial awareness, facial recognition, and emotional intuition, controls the left side. So here's what they did. They presented different visual information to each hemisphere by flashing images to only one visual field, either the left or right side of a screen, while the patient's eyes were fixed on a central point. In one experiment, the word ring was flashed to the left visual field, which goes to the right hemisphere. At the same time, the word key was shown to the right visual field, processed by the left hemisphere. When asked to say what they saw, the patient said key. But when asked to point to what they saw with their left hand, controlled by the right hemisphere, they picked up a ring. Two correct answers, two separate responses. One brain divided. The left hemisphere is usually dominant for language. This means it gets to narrate your experience. It explains, justifies, interprets. But in split-brain patients, the right hemisphere often knows things the left hemisphere cannot express. So when the right hemisphere perceives an image but can't talk about it, because language is housed in the left, it communicates through behavior, a hand gesture, a drawing, or a selection of an object. And when the left hemisphere is confronted with an action it didn't initiate, like the left hand pointing to a ring, it will create a story to explain it. It doesn't know why the ring was chosen, but it can't tolerate not knowing, so it fabricates meaning. This phenomenon is called confabulation. It's a subtle reminder that the you in your head, the narrator, isn't always telling the truth. It's doing its best to make sense of things it doesn't fully understand. In some cases, the two hemispheres even appear to act in opposition. There are documented reports of patients whose right hand would button up a shirt while the left hand tried to unbutton it. Or one hand would reach for an object, while the other swatted it away. This is not symbolic. These are observable behaviors, evidence that when communication between hemispheres is lost, each half seems to operate independently, with its own agenda, preferences, and even forms of consciousness. So the question emerges, is consciousness unified by nature? Or do we only feel like oneself because our brain keeps its parts in constant, rapid communication? When that communication is severed, the illusion seems to break down. The implications of these experiments stretch far beyond neuroscience. They challenge the most fundamental assumptions we have about identity. If consciousness can be divided, does that mean there were always two selves present in a healthy brain? Or is the experience of unity itself an emergent property of connection, something that only arises when the parts are in sync? Some theorists argue that consciousness is not a singular stream, but rather a dynamic negotiation among many competing neural processes. The self, in this view, is not a thing. but a story told by the brain's dominant hemisphere. A story that helps us survive, function, and feel whole. But when the storyteller can no longer access the whole narrative, the cracks begin to show. Split brain experiments force us to confront a deeply uncomfortable possibility, that what we call I is not as singular as it seems, that your thoughts, your intentions, your identity might be the product of multiple systems, loosely stitched together by language and habit. And when that stitching is cut, it's not just the brain that's divided, it's the self. So, how many yous are in your head? The answer may be more than one.